So as a dividend investor, I'm constantly curious on when my ex-dividend dates are and when my payout dates are for those dividend stocks. So we're going to jump into my portfolio and also talk about the program that I'm using to kind of help me figure out those two dates pretty quickly so I can kind of have an ease of mind of when I'm buying into stocks and when I'm expecting those dividends. Now, in case you're new here, my name is Dennis and I love talking about financial apps and services to help people build wealth, as well as show you guys my investing journey like we are here today. So we're going to jump on my portfolio, talk a little bit about it, and then also talk about how to find out those ex-dividend dates and the payout dates in a much quicker fashion. So let's jump onto this portfolio here and take a look at where we're at. So right over here, you can see we are currently sitting at $3,769.93. So we are doing pretty good. In case you're curious, this is the money weighted return on M1 Finance, and which is 24.54%. And then my actual unrealized gains right now is $16.92, which is 0.45%. In case you don't know the difference between those, this is essentially all the money I've put in and then also sold maybe some stocks and made a profit for, but I kept that money in the portfolio, where my holdings over here in the unrealized gains does not show that anymore. So that's why I personally do like paying attention to my money weighted return, because this is all the money I've made so far on the platform, even with the economy going down the way it did over the last couple of months. Now, as a dividend investor, I do like paying attention to ex-dividend dates when I'm investing in certain stocks to make sure that I don't either miss out on the dates or hold off on buying certain stocks if I already passed those dates. But trying to figure out when those ex-dividend dates are can be a little cumbersome, because I have about 36 stocks, as you can see here. I do have one ETF, and then the remaining 35 are all individual companies that I have in this portfolio. So going through and looking up each one individually, again, can be a little tiresome. And then of course, as a dividend investor, one of my favorite days of the month are the days that I get paid. So I do enjoy getting those dividend payouts, where if we go here, you can see here, of course, just looking at all these dividends always makes my day. But I do also like to understand when I'm expecting these dividends. Now, certain different brokerage accounts will actually show you ahead of time when those dividends are expected to hit your account. I use M1 Finance, which unfortunately doesn't actually show me when I'm expecting them to come in. And they actually even also deposit the money at the end of that given day. So it's a little unfortunate on that front, but overall, still a great system that I personally love to use. Which, by the way, in case you're curious on using M1 Finance, I'll have a link in the show notes down below for you guys. Now, what I'm going to do is show you a website that I'm personally using right now to be able to check out what I'm actually having in my portfolio and see the ex-dividend dates and the payout dates all at the same exact time, instead of having to go into each one individually. So the website I use is called seekingalpha.com. Now, I personally like using this website. I do get a lot of information, and then when I go into individual companies, as an example here, I can type in Coca-Cola, and then I can see a lot of the dividend information right over here on their scorecard. So I can see the ex-dividend date, I can see the recorded date, the payout date, and then the frequency, and also when they declared it if I wanted to know. So going to each one of these as individuals with my portfolio, again, would be a lot of time that I'm giving up. So with seekingalpha.com, they have this little tab up here called My Portfolio. And as you can see here, you can create multiple portfolios if you'd like. I created one for my M1 Finance account. So if we click on here, I actually went through the process and added every single symbol I had as far as tickers onto this. So I have 36 different companies all across this right over here. Gives me some really great insight on under the summary tabs, so quick overviews on all these companies. But they also have a dividend tab right over here, where if I click on this, it tells me so much information all at once, mainly being the ex-dividend date and then the payout date. And what's making this really cool is I can filter and toggle this, so that way I can see, if I toggle it a second time, so I can see here from this toggle, the ex-dividend date from the latest one, which was Disney. Of course, they suspended their dividend right now. And then after that, it was M and then CIM after that. So if I scroll down, I can see the ex-dividend dates that are coming up closest to me. So right now it's May 7th. So for me, I needed to have money put into Pfizer and Starbucks to be able to get those dividends, because I can see them right over here. So if I want to get more dividends from my Apple stock, I can go ahead and make sure I deposit a little bit more by tomorrow's close, so that way I can go ahead and get more shares in and get paid out more dividends And then again, you can kind of go through the process and see all the ex-dividend dates for all of these companies. So the other big one, of course, was the payout dates that these companies are paying out the dividend. So we can toggle here if we'd like to again, and I'm gonna do it a second time to go from oldest to newest, and scroll down here and we can see again, because I'm in May 7th, we can see that tomorrow on May 8th, we got MasterCard that's going to be paying out their dividend, so I know to expect it. And then I can see all the other companies that are also paying me out in May as well. Now, so this is for me a really nice thing just to kind of keep track of the different companies. And again, if I wanted to actually invest in certain companies before the ex-dividend date to make sure that I get more value from their dividend instead of just investing in them versus another company that I could have gotten those dividends from. So seekingalpha.com gives me so much great insight. They have a lot of other toggles here, so I can see the 4-year average yield. I can actually see, let me go ahead and like organize these again alphabetically. So I can see the 4-year average yield. I can see the dividend rate going forward, the payout ratio, which is also a big deal for me too, making sure that these companies are not too over the limit here, which this one is with Ally. And then average payout percentage. And you can see the dividend growth over the last 3 years and then the 5-year growth rate as well too, which again, these are really good indications for me. We could also see the growth for the amount of years. So if companies are getting close to like the Dividend Kings, which is over 50 years, and then Dividend Aristocrats, which is over 25. You can see here like ADP is at 21 years, so it's very nice. And then we got some companies as low as 0 years here towards that bottom. So for me personally, I love using this because it gives me so much insight when it comes back to looking at my portfolio, which is right here. So I don't have to be guessing when I'm going to be getting paid out these dividends. I have an expectation of when I'm supposed to be receiving them and when is the best time to be investing in them, so I get the most money and the most bang for my buck essentially. Now, before we continue on, if you are someone who's a fan of just investing entirely and love to try out different investing apps, I'm going to have a link in the show notes down below to try out some different apps. But the cool thing is going through those links will also give you some free stock to be able to test out these apps and see if you like them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop back into the rest of this content. Now, for me, as a dividend investor, I also do like making sure that, across the board that I have a good yield. So depending on who is investing and what they're trying to invest in, I try to go for about 3%. So what I do is I'm clicking on my research tab here, going to my pies, and I can see here my overall Dividend Dentist pie. When I click on this right over here, this will show me that I currently have 36 holdings, of course, and my dividend yield is actually 3.012%, and then my expense ratio is 0.01, and that's mainly because I have one ETF on my overall account. But this gives me an idea of where my dividend yield is, and as a dividend investor, I try to make sure I have kind of a nice balance between some growth stocks, some dividend stocks, and then some dividend growth stocks, which I focus on making sure that those dividends that are maybe a lower percentage, like 1 to 2%, have really good growth rates overall, like 20% on average. And what I mean by that is if we go back to Seeking Alpha, clicking on dividends, we can go on to the dividend growth rate right over here, and I'll toggle this. So right here, as MasterCard is a great example. So MasterCard gives out a 24.57% average dividend growth per year. So that means my money is growing at a rate of 24% for the dividend that is being paid out. So I'll click on them individually to kind of break this down a little easier for you. So right over here, you can see the dividend yield is pretty abysmal in comparison to the stock price. So I'm not really getting anything for it. I get 40 cents per share that I have, which right now I don't have a full share, but at least I know that every time they increase their dividend, I am actually getting a really good percentage. So we can go to dividend news and see here. So back on December 2019, they increased their dividend by 21%. So they went from 33 cents to 40 cents. If we scroll down further down here, it looks like back in December 4th of 2018, they increased their dividend by 32%. So they went from a quarter to 33 cents. So you kind of get an idea of the value of actually having a company that is increasing their dividend rate at a high increase by year over year, even if their dividend yield is really low across the board. Because I want to have this company as a growth stock, but also do like the fact that they pay out a dividend just to begin with, because why not be able to get growth and dividend at the same time as well? So that's my big thing with having a dividend yield of under 4% as a dividend investor. I'm okay with that because I'm also focusing a little bit on growth, and then again, those companies that pay out those higher dividend yields. The nice thing is too with M1 Finance, I can actually go into my individual pies here and see how each one is doing as well. So as an example, my tech pie has 6 holdings and my average dividend yield across the board is 3.496%. Of course, 0 expense because they're all just my own stocks. And then we can go into financials here. So my financial pie has 5 holdings, and then this dividend yield is 2.18%. Of course, again, 0 expense ratio on that. And then let's see what else we got. We got retail here. So retail is my lowest one right now. We have 6 stocks altogether. My dividend yield is 1.993%. This has a lot to do with the fact that I have Costco and Ross in my portfolio, and they don't really perform very well when it comes to dividends, but their yields are pretty high as far as increasing them every year. But if you also look to, I have Home Depot and Target, which are higher percentages of this pie. So technically I'm going to get more than just the 2% because the fact that these two pay about like 2.5%, and they're a bigger portion of my overall sector. So next up is going to be my consumer products. This one right here, again, 6 holdings, and my dividend yield is 3.477%. Got some good paying out dividend companies in here. And then if we go to real estate, we have 4 holdings with a total dividend yield of 4.49%, which I think is pretty good for REITs. And then for health, we're going to look in here. We have only 3 stocks in my health pie, but we are averaging 3.872% on that dividend yield. And then for my industries pie, we have 5 holdings, and then the average dividend yield is 2.931% out of the 5 companies that I have in there as well. So across the board, I'm pretty happy with my dividend yield being around 3%, having some of the companies that I have also be growth focused altogether. But my big goal is to get to a point where I am earning probably around $1,000 a month on average from dividends by the time I hit 40. So I got about 9.5 years to go on that prospect. So that way I have this income coming in from dividends and be able to either reinvest them if I want to, or pull that money out and use them for anything else. That way I'm more diversified in my income streams and have this money coming in aside from just rentals and my businesses all together all at once. Now, if you're curious to learn more when it comes to dividend investing, I want you to check out my video right over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in that next video.